Well, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I am Zach again. I'm on the customer success team here at Streak. I will be presenting this class today, From Spreadsheets to Streak, Mastering Lead, Import, and Automation. Again, moderated by my colleague, Amy, who will be holding down the chat and also answering any and all questions. Going into the agenda, we're going to be chatting about how to prepare your data set for import, and I'll be walking you through a full demo of that import. We'll then move on to how to capture leads that you receive from a Google form and Typeform submissions using our native integrations and automations. And then we'll move into the Gmail incoming message trigger. So kind of dialing into bulk imports and then setting up our automations, some that we have natively, and then other forms that teams may use but are not native to Streak, and then we will move on to any questions that you guys have. So you're probably wondering why this is important. A majority of people that use Streak are either transitioning from an existing spreadsheet that they're managing their business on, or they're transitioning from another CRM. So the first few bullet points are going to speak to the initial topic that I'll be chatting about, importing your data, and then we'll kind of move on to the integrations and automation side of things. So when you're importing your data, it's going to primarily be a one-time import, and the cleaner your data is, the easier it will be for you to manage in Streak, and the more information that you have will allow for easier filtering, which we call save views in Streak, which will allow you to create essentially subsets of your data. And ultimately, this will save time from having to manually enter your data one row at a time or one column at a time. And once you are building your integrations and automations in Streak, this will absolutely save you time. And it's kind of a domino effect, in my opinion. Once you set up one automation, you'll then want to just continue automating additional steps within your process. So moving on to the first portion of our class is importing. There's a few different ways you can access the importer. When you are inside of a pipeline, you'll see the 3-dot icon in the top right-hand corner, as well as a plus sign in the top right-hand corner. I'll be mentioning the 3-dot icon several times throughout this call. There's a lot of powerful features inside of these 3 dots, but the plus sign is also a way for you to access the import functionality. So step one, before you begin importing, the most important thing is that you're going to want to set up your pipeline. Once your pipeline is created, you can then choose the columns that you're going to want to map from your data set. Don't worry if you miss a few columns upon the creation of your pipeline. It's not the end of the world. You'll be able to create those columns during the import. Next, you'll want to set up the columns within your data set before you import, and then once your pipeline is created and your data set is ready, you'll be able to import your data. And I'll now go into a live demo where I will walk you through how to import, and I'll also discuss these advanced settings right here that you see in this first screenshot. So right here, you can see I'm in my sales pipeline. I was able to create this by just selecting the new pipeline button in the top left-hand corner. You'll be able to choose from a number of templated pipelines, or you can create a pipeline from scratch. It's really up to you depending on your use case and what your process is, and really what you'll be tracking throughout your workflow in Streak. So again, you can set up the import by selecting this 3-dot icon in the top right, or by selecting this plus sign right here. And then you can select import. You'll then be presented with 2 options. You can import data from a Google Sheet or from a CSV or Excel file. Down at the bottom of this pop-up, you'll be presented with some advanced settings. We have these toggled on by default because this is primarily what we expect users to want and what they end up setting as their default advanced settings. So automatic email sharing is directly related to when a contact is added to a box in Streak. Automatic email sharing means that when a contact is added, our system is going to scan your inbox as well as your Streak team's inbox for any emails that you have with that specific contact and automatically pull them into that box for more transparency and visibility amongst your team. Update existing boxes is really powerful. We want to prevent as many duplicates as possible while you're importing. So when you import your data set, we will search for a box with an existing name. If we're able to find it, update that box with new information from your data set. If we're not able to find it, create a new box in your pipeline. And then creating missing items. This is primarily related to stages as well as dropdown and tag columns. If you're importing values into a dropdown or a tag column and those values do not already exist, we will create those new values for you during the import. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to select Google Sheet because that's where my data set lives. It will then direct me over to my spreadsheets as well as my shared drives where I can then select my data set. I can now begin the import process. The column header row will be selected by default, which is what we want because this is going to allow us to easily map the columns within our data set to the columns within our pipeline. Since that's already pre-selected, I can hit next. And here is where we map the columns from our data set to the columns within our pipeline. So on the left-hand side, you'll see all of the columns in my Google Sheet. In the middle, we'll see some sample data within my Google Sheet. And then on the right-hand side, we'll see our pipeline columns. So we'll really just be mapping the columns within the data set to the columns within the pipeline. We do our best to auto map as many columns as we can, simply based off of the column names in our sheet with the column names in our pipeline, but you will need to fine tune it and do some adjusting just to make sure everything matches up how you would expect it to. For example, company name is auto mapped to company name, which is in the contacts and organizations column, but I want this to instead be mapped to the box name because the company is what I'm going to be tracking throughout my pipeline. I'll then slowly scroll through this and we can see the contact information, first name, last name, email address, and phone number are mapped to the contact fields, which is exactly what we want. Location is mapped to the location freeform column within my pipeline. You can also map location to a specific contact or an organization, but I want to be able to view this from the pipeline level because this is the location of the companies that I'm tracking. Company size. We can then scroll through and try to find this company size freeform column. It looks like I don't have one. I might have left this out during the creation of my pipeline, but not to worry. I can easily hit add new right here, and I can create a new column and select the type of column that I want. I'm just going to want to create a freeform column here. Industry is mapped to my industry freeform column. Lead source is mapped to lead source, and then I have stages mapped to the stages within my pipeline. So I think I'm ready to go. This is the final review and cleanup of your data. So if there are any issues or any errors that are noticed here, you will be able to easily resolve those, but it looks like I'm good to go, so I can go ahead and finalize this import. You'll then be presented with an import summary here. It will just show you the number of boxes that are being created versus updated, the number of contacts and organizations that are added. You'll then see a small progress mole down in the bottom right, just letting you know the progress of your import. Really, depending on the size of your file will determine how long it takes to import your data. This was a relatively small import with only 21 boxes and 21 contacts, so this took only a few seconds here. You can go ahead and close this out, and you will also receive an email letting you know that your import has been completed in your inbox. That's importing wrapped up, so I'm going to take a brief pause here, Amy. I'm not sure if there were any questions in the chat or anything that I should go back and cover before I move forward to the next portion of the class.
So far, so good.
Sweet, awesome. Great to hear it. All right, I'll just move along then. So moving on from importing to Google Form and Typeform. These are two native automations that we have available in Streak on our Pro Plus plan. And you can access these integrations and automations similar to how you were able to import your data. Once you have a pipeline set up, you can go to the three-dot icon in the top right-hand corner, select integrations and automations, and then you can begin to build these on your own. So I'm going to go back to the pipeline and we can begin setting these up as well. So 3-dot icon in the top right-hand corner, integrations and automations. You'll notice that there's a few different folders right here. So these have pre-templated or pre-built out automations. If you're not entirely sure what you're looking for, you can take a peek through these and figure out what might be the most useful for you. We do have a capture from forms folder where you can capture from Typeform submissions as well as capture from Google Form submissions. Personally, I like to go down towards the bottom. It's third from the bottom, represented by the little gear icon, create native integrations from scratch. And here, this will really allow you to see all of the triggers and actions that you have available. So I'm going to select add trigger, and I'll come down to Google, but you'll also see Typeform as an available option as well. These are very similar in setting up. So I'm just going to run through one demonstration today, and it will be a Google form, which is right here, Google form submitted. Step one is going to be to make sure your Google form is already built, because you're going to need to select that form during the creation of this automation. I've set this up before this class, so I'm going to select this sales form right here. And then you'll be presented with all of the questions within your form, as well as sample data that you'll see on the right-hand side. You'll also be able to sift through sample data that you have received from previous form submissions. So we can see this form was filled out a few times, 20 hours ago, 22 hours ago, and 18 hours ago. And then you'll be able to see that this is sample data because the text is grayed out. Once you have selected your trigger, you can click Add Step in the bottom right-hand corner and begin setting up your action steps. So a few of the most important action steps are going to be creating a box. So when this form is filled out, I want a box to automatically be created in my pipeline. And I also want a contact to be added to that box. And really similar to the import process, we're just mapping our information from the trigger step or from our form to the columns within our pipeline. So really depending on what you're tracking, again, in this sales use case, I'm tracking company name as the box name. So I can see company name is represented right here, and I have some sample data. I'm just going to want to double click in the cell to the right of this box name column, and I'll be able to choose and reference information from my trigger step. So from Google form, and then I'm going to want to pull in that company name. And if we wait just a moment, we can see Streak Coffee House has been pulled in right here, which is great. You'll then be able to reference additional columns within your pipeline. So if you hit show more, I'm going to want to pull in bean types, industry, location, and lead source. And then you're just mapping the information from the trigger step down into the action step to create a box. So I'll just kind of run through a few action steps here for mapping our data. Bean types go to bean types, industry will be mapped to industry, location will be mapped to location, and lead source. It looks like I don't have a lead source in my Google form. So what I'm going to want to note is that whenever this form is filled out, I want to be able to reference that the lead source is coming from the website. So I would just type in website, which is an available value within my lead source dropdown column. The final step here is going to be to map my contact information. So I'm going to map first name to given name, last name to family name, email address will go to email, and then the phone number. Last step will just be to give this a name. So I'll just say Google form, create box, and I will be able to save this. This is a one-time creation. It will run moving forward. So right here, I have a pre-filled out form. I'm going to submit this. And then we can come back over to our pipeline, and then within a matter of seconds, we can see a box was automatically created, the contact was added, and all of these custom columns were filled out. The lead source was shown as website, and now we can easily filter this specific column to show all of the boxes that are created from the website versus boxes that were imported or that were existing leads. You can also come over here to this three-dot icon, integrations and automations, and view any automations that you or other people on your team have built. We can see this ran successfully a few seconds ago. You'll also be notified if you ever come across any errors in your flow. And that's how you set up a Google form automation in your pipeline. Typeform is going to be very similar. Again, I just wanted to walk through one as an example today. Amy, how are we doing in the chat? Any questions so far? Is everyone following along all right?
Yeah, it's going great. 2 questions for you. If we can go back to your demo screen, I think it could be helpful for us to just reiterate why in this example, the box name is a company and what it means for the contact column and what are other options for box names sometimes.
Yeah, good call out. So a box name is really going to be the unique identifier and whatever it is that you're tracking throughout your specific process. So I am tracking companies. I'm attempting to sell coffee beans in bulk to different companies. And then the contacts and organizations column really store just that, either the contact or the organization. So I'm primarily storing contacts. So my direct point of contact at each company. So at Wild Joe's, James Smith is my main contact at that specific company. So it really depends whatever it is that you're tracking can be the box name. If you're tracking individuals throughout your pipeline, maybe James Smith is the person that you're tracking throughout this specific process or workflow. And then you can track whatever company they work for within the contacts and organizations column.
Amazing, super helpful. One other question for you, Zach. The best way to update a box based on Google Form, so when a form response comes in, if that company or person has already been created in Streak, can the automation update that existing box? And what would be the best way?
Yeah, great question. So similar to our importer, when you're importing data, there was that option so that if an existing box is found, find that box and update it with new information. You're able to do the similar a similar function with the create a box action step. So I'm going to go back and edit the automation. And if you hit show more in the create a box action step, you scroll down towards the bottom, you'll have this update if name matches section, and it's set to true by default, similar to the advanced settings during the import. So if this is the case that you want to prevent duplicates, I would recommend just leaving this as is. No action is needed on your end. This is set to true. If whenever that form is filled out, if Wild Joe's or Streak Coffee House fills out that form again, you want a duplicate or another box to be created, you can double click right here and simply change this to false. But this is how you will make it so that if an existing box is found, it will be updated with new information from that form submission.
Awesome.
All
Thanks.
right. Yeah, sounds great. All right, moving on to the last portion of the class. This is the Gmail incoming message trigger. So I'm going to walk through a few steps on how to set this up, and then I'll also be walking through a live demo. So feel free to let me know if any questions come up. But a lot of people use other form types that are not Google Form or Typeform. And we want users to be able to get those leads into Streak as quickly as possible, so you're not having to manually enter in this information. Some form types might include Jot form, Gravity form, WordPress. It really just depends. So the Gmail incoming message trigger will allow you to set up an automation that can scan the emails within your inbox, and then you can set up an automation similar to what we just did with the Google form. So step one is going to be to have an example email in your inbox, similar to this one that I have right here. You can see I have just a generic subject line, Arbutus Coffee -interest form. And then we have all of the questions from the form, as well as all of the answers from that form. So we're going to want to have some sort of example or dummy email within your inbox that we can use as an example when we're setting this up. Next, after that is going to be to figure out what the filter is going to be. We use the search options filter button in Gmail. So at the top of your Gmail inbox, you have a search bar that will allow you to search for anything within your Gmail inbox as well as Streak. If you hit the search options button in the top right, it will allow you to really dial down exactly the email that you're searching for. This one's relatively simple because I'm just searching for emails in my inbox that contain a specific subject line, but you can really drill down and get as granular as you want to filter for emails with a specific subject line that might be coming from a specific email address, like no reply at jotform.com, and maybe that are going to specific people on your team. Additional steps when setting this up is to set up the AI response action steps. So once we have determined what it is we're filtering for in our inbox, we then want to parse the information within the email in order to really pick those form response answers and then populate those into the columns within our pipeline. So I'll be walking through all of this in a demo after this, but AI response really allows us to parse and figure out the answers within that form submission so that we can populate them into Streak. Similar to how we were adding action steps before, you'll hit add step in the bottom right and you'll come down to utilities. And here you will be able to select AI response. There are a few other options that you have, but we'll primarily be focusing on the AI response today. You'll then choose the input data, so whatever it is that you want to parse, primarily the body of the email, which contains all of the questions and all of the answers is what I'll want to be parsing in this specific instance. And this is just a quick screenshot of what the AI response will look like. So the input data is going to be the body of the email. The prompt is what you're going to type in, just in simple English. You're prompting the input data or the AI to return whatever it is that you are wanting to return. So in this instance, I want to return the box name, which in this case is the company name. And we can see it's showing sample data in the completion, which is day camps. I would just make sure that your completion is returning the results that you would expect it to return. Additional action steps after that are similar to the Google form and Typeform automation that we set up. So we're going to want to create a box. We'll want to add a contact to that box. And then the last action step that I like to add that's kind of the cherry on top is adding a Gmail thread to the box. So the information within our form submission is already going to be populated within the columns, but we'll also want to add that form submission email that you receive in your inbox to the box as well. So you or other members on your team can click into that box within your pipeline and view the form submission as a thread. And then this last screenshot right here that you see to the right is just mapping the AI response steps to your pipeline columns. So similar to how we were mapping the answers within our Google form to the columns within our pipeline, we'll be mapping these AI response steps to the specific columns within our pipeline. So I'm just going to walk through a demo of how this will be set up. So first, filtering and figuring out what it is exactly that you want to search for. The search in mail search bar at the top of your screen will allow you to figure out the exact search options that you're looking for. I'm just searching for emails that contain this specific subject line in my inbox. Once you figure out exactly what you want to search for, you can select the search button and it will show you some sample data here, which are emails in my inbox. And then it will present you with the filter that you want to use. So I can simply copy this, come back over to my pipeline, and then we can begin building this automation. So again, the 3-dot icon in the top right-hand corner, integrations and automations, and then scroll down to create native integrations from scratch, where we will then add the trigger. So it's going to be Google because we're wanting to search for emails within our inbox, so incoming message. And then you can simply paste that filter directly into the search bar. And again, it will present you with sample data based on the emails within your inbox that match that filter. You can sift through the sample data that you've received. It looks like I've received 3 form submissions already. You can see who those emails are coming from, who they're going to, the subject line, which matches the filter. That's great. And then one other thing is to hit show more underneath the message subject, come down to the message parse body, where you can see the body of the email. If I double click into this cell and slowly scroll through, you can see all of the answers to that form submission: company name, first name, last name, email address, phone number. So now that we've figured out exactly what we want to filter for, and we can see that it's pulling in the correct emails from our inbox, we can begin setting up those AI response action steps. So I'm going to hit add step down in the bottom right, come down to utilities and select AI response. From here, we need to select the input data, so what the AI response is going to be searching for. So if I double click into the cell, I can reference information from our trigger step. So if I hit from incoming message, I can scroll down to the message parse body. So this is really just the body of the email. And then within the prompt, I can prompt it to return whatever I want. I'm going to want to create a box within my pipeline based off of the company name. So I'm just going to say return company name. And if I click out of this, it should return the company name within this completion. And it just took a few seconds, but we can see right here, Cool Cats Cafe in gray, it returned the company name from the message parse body. I'm just going to run through that one more time. I'm not going to create AI response action steps for everything, but if you were setting this up on your own, this is what you would do. So you would hit add step, come down to utilities, AI response. Again, the input data is going to be whatever it is we're wanting to search for, whatever we're going to want the AI response to search for, which is the body of that email. And then the prompt is what we are going to type in, what we're prompting the AI to return. So I'm going to say return email address, and it should return the email address from that form, mona@gmail.com. That's great. I can then go in and add additional action steps. So I can hit add step, streak. I'm going to want to create a box. I'm going to want to add a contact to the box. And then the last step is going to be to add that Gmail thread to the box. So I'm now going to walk through how to map your AI response action steps to the columns within your pipeline. So I want company name to be mapped to the box name. So if I double click in the cell here, I'm going to want to return that first generic LLM completion. And I want to return the completion, which is what I prompted the AI response to return. So if I select the completion and wait a few seconds, it should return the company name, Cool Cats Cafe. And then the additional piece of information that I want to map is the email address, which will return the email address from the completion as well. So now I have the ability to create a box and the ability to add a contact, and you would essentially add additional AI response action steps for other pieces of information that you would want to return, like the phone number, location, company size, industry, and so on for the other answers within your form submission. The last step is to add the Gmail thread to the box. This is going to be pre-mapped for you, but I'll just kind of walk through how you would fill this out. So within this action step, you want to first locate the box, which is going to be from the create a box action step. And we're going to want to select that box key. So now that we've located the box, we need to add the actual Gmail thread to the box. So if I select the cell to the right of thread ID, I can come up here to the incoming message trigger and select the Gmail thread ID. I can then give this a name, incoming message, create box, and create this. Once this is saved, I already have an email pre-templated and set up, but I'm going to go ahead and send this email to myself. And this one might take a few extra seconds to run because you're sending an email from one address to another. Um, Obviously, you will be receiving a form submission to your inbox, but then the automation will then run. It looks like someone else filled out the form as well. Kitty's Corner Cafe, and here's the one that I just sent to myself. Again, you can come over here to this three dot icon, view all of the integrations and automations that you have set up, as well as other members on your team. We can see this has run successfully twice already, and these boxes have populated in the pipeline. This one I know is a little bit more difficult and complex to set up, but hopefully everyone was able to follow along relatively quickly or relatively well. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful and you guys learned something today. Happy to move forward with any questions that anyone has, if there's anything else I should cover.
Yeah, amazing. Super helpful, Zach. One question I did want to ask is back in your demo, the two boxes that were just populated, can you just show us the box view? I'd love to see what the email looks like from Streak here. So in Kitty's Corner or
Yeah,
Exactly.
great question. So because we added that add Gmail thread to box action step, of course we would have, if we would have kept going, we would have been able to map additional form submission responses to these custom columns. But all I did was create the box name and the email address just to save time. But since the Gmail thread was added to the box, I can click into it and see all of the other answers within that form submission as well. Same with this one too.
Great, super helpful. One other automation-based question in the chat for you, Zach, and this is kind of a level 2 automation. But if we think about an email that gets sent out with a form, and whoever receives that email fills out the form, can the automation tool update them and move them from contacted to form filled out?
Yeah, absolutely. So we could have also added additional filters here so that similar to when we set up the Google form, we can note that this was added to, that the lead source was a website versus an existing lead from our import. But we can also go to the three dot icon, integrations and automations. And if we were to edit either of these automations, we can say when a Google form is submitted or when you receive a new incoming message, we want to create a box, add a contact to that box. And when the box is created here, you can designate which stage you want it to go to. So since I didn't select a stage, by default, it's going to go directly into the lead stage, but I would be able to designate another stage if I wanted it to go there. You can really get as complex with these as you want. We could add additional action steps so that when a form is filled out, an email is automatically sent to that specific contact or recipient, letting them know that, hey, I've received your form submission. My team is looking into it and we'll follow up with you as soon as we can, or we'll set up a call for next steps. So there's many additional action steps that you can add. That would probably be another class though, since we're probably already running out of time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, great. I think maybe we can just give one more minute if there are any final pieces of feedback or any final questions we want to throw in that chat. But yeah, I think that was amazing. It was really awesome to see you run through all the different ways that you can populate boxes in Streak. So thanks for breaking that down so well.
Yeah, I know it was a lot of information. Hopefully you guys found it helpful though. And we'd also love to hear from you after this class, if you guys have any feedback or if there's any specific features within Streak that you would like us to cover next in another class. We'd love to hear from you so that we can really determine what would be most useful for all of our users to cover in these classes. Again, this is only the second class that we've done so far. We have a few others scheduled down the pipeline, but we'd love to hear from you if there's anything else you'd like us to cover in one of these sessions.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, on that, thank you guys for showing up, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.